For the past 45 years, Grand Coulee's power has been a major Pacific Northwest growth stimulant. In 1984 alone, Grand Coulee produced over 20.4 billion kilowatt hours of electricity, enough to power over 2.3 million homes at the U.S. average. It is also the project's largest source of revenue. It provides the means of repaying a major share of project construction costs. Thus, Grand Coulee Dam and the remainder of the Columbia Basin Project are inseparable. Built as a unit to provide many needed functions and to pay for itself. It was conceived, authorized by Congress, constructed, and is operated that way. Since 1941, Grand Coulee has produced power with a wholesale value of about $2.2 billion. The irrigation districts have added low-head generators at several locations along the irrigation distribution system, providing additional energy and revenue. Power from these plants is sold directly to Seattle and Tacoma. Reclamation and the people of Washington State have been partners in the development of the project since the beginning. That support has continued throughout the years with additional appropriations, helpful legislation, and active participation by several state agencies. For instance, through a cost-sharing program, the state of Washington in 1975 made available $15 million as front-end money for construction of Bacon Siphon and Tunnel Number 2, part of the main conveyance facilities to help assure completion of the second half of the project. About 50% of the project area remains to be served by project facilities. Unlike the first half of the project, most of the remaining land is in private ownership and is either farmed without any irrigation, growing mainly wheat and barley, or the farmers have developed wells to supplement natural rainfall. Most of these dryland farming operations consist of several thousand acres and would have to be broken up into smaller family farms to comply with reclamation acreage limitation. For this and other reasons, such as the cost of converting to irrigation and changes required in basic farming operations, there are some who do not want the project water. The rights of these individuals are addressed in existing irrigation law. Their concerns are being given consideration by appropriate elected officials at both the state and district levels. On the other hand, a large number of landowners have expressed a strong desire to move forward with project completion. In 1984, the irrigation districts became united in their request that reclamation proceed with further development. This renewed interest is also found among sportsmen and recreationists throughout the Northwest. Estimates of acreage currently being irrigated by pumping from wells range from 130,000 to 150,000 acres. Most of this augments production of dryland crops such as wheat and barley. But with the water level in the wells dropping rapidly in some areas and power rates increasing, water costs become critical. This is Orman Johnson, a third-generation basin farmer. His grandfather settled here in 1906 as the dryland farmer, and later, Orman's dad converted part of the farm to irrigation using wells. For Orman and his brother, who now operate the farm, each year it gets more difficult to get a crop.
The situation on this well is that the water table is dropping more rapidly than any of our other wells. Some years it goes down relatively nothing, and other years it's going down 20 feet or 30 feet. But over the last 10 years, we'll probably average 7 to 10 feet decline in our water table. It costs us, at this particular well, approximately 5 or 6 times more than it did 10 years ago.
Some irrigators have begun to experience a high sodium or salt content in their wells. If this trend continues, some land presently irrigated from wells will go out of production of irrigated crops without project water. This could have been the case on this farm near Moses Lake, operated by Art Pryor.
The pump house behind us is one of our 3 abandoned wells. We abandoned the wells because of the quality of the water. We had a high sodium content in these wells. It took us 2 or 3 years to find out what the problem was. We had to stop pumping these wells because of the water penetration. The sodium was sealing the ground, and we had crop damage, and actually would ruin the soil after so many years. We were fortunate that this land borders the East Low Canal. It is east high ground. The East Irrigation District negotiated a contract for 10,000 acres in this area for people like us and having the same kinds of problems. And we were fortunate, like I say, to be in this position, that water was available. For the last 2 years now, we've been pumping Bureau water on this project, or this farm. If it wasn't for that, we wouldn't probably be here today.
Reclamation's preferred plan would provide for phased development of the remaining 539,000 acres of the authorized project. Phase 1 would serve about 173,000 acres and require about 14 years to complete. These lands are located in all 3 irrigation districts. The remaining 366,000 acres would be served through construction of additional facilities in the subsequent phases. The plan calls for development for fish, wildlife, and recreation areas in those portions of the project unsuitable for irrigated agriculture and in some scattered tracts of farmland. Water for the second half of the project would be supplied under Washington State water law from the Columbia River. Less than 3% of the average flow. The existing facilities from the Grand Coulee Dam pump generating plant to the main canal already have capacity to divert, pump, and carry the increased amount of water required to irrigate both Phase 1 and subsequent phase development. An environmental impact statement and 2 related studies are now being developed to determine what effect further project development would have on the basin, the state, and the region, including the effect on present and future power generation and Columbia River fisheries. It is scheduled to be ready in draft form for review and public hearings by the end of 1986. Even if begun today, full development of the project would not be a reality until well into the 21st century. Thus, each increment of development would be phased in gradually, allowing time for local adjustment and market development. Whether or not the second half of the project is completed will depend upon the wishes of the people of Washington State. That public dialogue is going on right now, and you're urged to participate in it.